Welcome, everyone, to another edition of The Travel Show with your host, Ted Blank of Ted Blank Luxury Travel and Adventure. And this is how adventuresome this host is. He is actually on a river cruise as we speak with the beautiful company AmaWaterways. And I can't wait to hear about where you are in this wonderful world that we are in. How have you been, Ted Blank?
I've been doing well, and I'm on vacation, so I'm enjoying myself and doing show prep too.
Okay.
Working on that.
Don't you love how you can combine two things like that? Kill two birds, as they say? It is.
Thing.
So you're on a river cruise. Tell our listeners where you are, please.
Well, probably folks will never believe it, but I am actually in South America, in the country of Colombia, and I am taking a river cruise on a river called the Magdalena River that is in northern Colombia. And it empties into the Caribbean Sea in a town called Barranquilla, Colombia, which happens to be the birthplace of the singer Shakira. I picked that up when I was here, but it's a beautiful, very tropical, very different place to go on a river cruise than Europe or even the Mississippi River, but a lot of commonalities, a lot of things that are different, and we could talk a little bit about that today.
So tell us about the river itself. How big is it? How wide is it? What would it be comparable to a river that we know about?
Yes, it's not as long, but it's similar in width to the Mississippi in some places, and it gets a little narrower as you start to go further inland. It is used for commercial navigation. So back in the day, they had steamboats, just like we did in the Mississippi, and now they have modern cargo ships and barges that carry freight up and down the river. And then this May, AmaWaterways launched their first ship here in Colombia, and they made this the newest river cruise destination in the world. So they now have two ships that operate 7-day cruises on the Magdalena River. And it's interesting because the place where we are today is a little town called Mompox, Mompox, if anybody wants to Google it or look it up. But it's in a pretty wide part of the river where the whole area kind of, once you get outside of the main channel, is full of little sloughs and backwater, kind of very similar to what we have on the upper Mississippi.
Sure.
And one of the neat things you get to do on this cruise is they've designed some kind of special custom-built sort of expedition motorboats that pick you up on the ship and take you back into the slough to go look at wildlife. And so this morning, we were up at the crack of dawn. We actually left the ship at 6 a.m. to go on a wildlife hunt and some bird watching. And so first thing in the morning when the sun is coming up and, sort of the world is waking up, it's just a beautiful, beautiful time to be out there. And as you get off the main channel and you get back into some of these smaller bodies of water, there are so many birds. It's amazing. This really is a bird watcher's paradise. And, we saw white herons and egrets and parakeets, kingfishers, and all sorts of other birds. Limpkins apparently are a big thing here, and they're named limpkins because they have long legs and it looks like they limp when they walk.
Oh.
Kingfishers and hummingbirds, and it's just really amazing. You're out in nature. There isn't anyone else around you except maybe a few fishermen in their canoes out there fishing, with nets like they've been fishing for hundreds of years, and it's really beautiful. It's a very pristine environment and just beautiful. Very green, very lush, of course. It's 90 degrees here today, and we're here a little bit in the cooler season, so it can get quite hot here in the summer, but just beautiful day, beautiful weather, clear skies, and, we got to spend 2 hours on a nice boat going around looking for birds, so that was kind of a neat experience to have today.
Do the river cruises go all year then?
They do. They run all year. Yep. They just started in May, but that's because that's when they finally got everything into place. And yeah, they run all year, twice a week. So 2 times each week all year.
So what did you know about this area before you went on this cruise?
I didn't know a whole lot. And you and I were talking a little bit off the air before we started. And, a lot of people maybe have a perception of Colombia that, there was a time when this was kind of the drug capital of the world.
Yes.
There was the drug cartel and Pablo Escobar and all that back in the 1980s. And, the good news for Colombia is that is now all in the past. It's a very modern, democratic country, very stable, very safe for tourists. And I think one of the challenges of, having such a period of time in their history is that a lot of the tourism infrastructure didn't have a chance to develop during the 1960s and 1970s and 1980s when this was all going on. And so they're playing catch up in many ways. And that's why, this really beautiful river has been essentially unexplored by Western travelers from, North America or Europe for a long, long time. And it's kind of neat to be one of the first people here. It's a neat experience.
Well, and how did AmaWaterways decide that this was a place where they wanted to start cruising? Because they're the first, you said.
Yeah, they're the first, and they got their start in Europe, like many river cruise companies. And almost everybody on the cruise here has been on a river cruise in Europe. And then as they expanded, they moved a little further afield. They started doing river cruises on the Nile River in Egypt, on the Mekong River in Vietnam and Cambodia, and then even on the Zambezi River in South America. And I think the owner is kind of an entrepreneur, and he was looking to do something new and different. And he came across Colombia and traveled here and met with people and realized that they could create a really unique cruise experience. And they had to start from scratch. There was nothing here. They had to build the docks. They had to build the ships. They had to build the ships in Colombia, because most countries, you have to build your ship locally. And there hadn't been a passenger ship built in Colombia since the 1950s. And so you can imagine all the challenges that came along with figuring that out. And then they had to hire staff and train them, and train them to work with North Americans. And so there was quite a long process to get this started up. They've been talking about it for about 4 years, which tells me it's been in the hopper for quite a bit longer than that. But it is really amazing to see all that work come to fruition here. And, now it's kind of old hat. They run every week and they have cruises and everybody has a wonderful time. But I'm sure getting here probably gave people some gray hairs along the way.
So if some of these river towns were not used to tourism, how has that then ramped up as well?
Yeah, well, it's very interesting because we're kind of celebrities here. When the ship sails down the river and, you'll pass by a little village or maybe sort of a farmer who lives kind of in a house on the side of the river, everybody comes out and they wave and they take pictures. And I was just walking back to the ship, and it's getting to be early evening here in Mompox, and all the kids were out of school. And they were all standing in front of the ship taking selfies with the ship. So they're very excited about it. It's interesting. This particular town here, Mompox, has a beautiful, beautiful old town, kind of the old historic downtown. It's very Spanish colonial architecture. At one point, it was a very important river city, but, over time that's declined a little bit. But the city center has been declared a World Heritage Site by UNESCO, which is the United Nations Economic and Social Council. And so other UNESCO World Heritage Sites would be like the Eiffel Tower in Paris or the British Parliament or something like that. So it's a really very, very neat city. I mean, I didn't know what to expect, and it's beautiful. I just went for a nice walk through town, and it's, the restaurants are just opening and people are sitting down and running their errands and things like that. So it's just kind of neat to see how people live.
And what is the industry in that part of the world?
So Colombia is a very big country. I actually guess I didn't realize it. It's about the size of Texas and California combined. So it's a pretty big country. It has a population of almost 50 million. And Mo, and I are old enough to remember the most famous Colombian ever, and that would be Mr. Juan Valdez, who, is the face of Colombian coffee.
For sure.
And so coffee is a huge industry in Colombia. But coffee is grown in cooler climates. So the coffee is grown further south in the country, up in the Andes. There's also a lot of mining in Colombia, copper and other things.
Okay.
In this particular area, it seems to mostly be agriculture. And there are farms that are large farms, small farms, even sort of subsistence farming. There's a lot of fishing, pineapples, they grow different things here. They grow corn, and they actually eat a lot of corn. So you see ears of corn along the river, but they grow pineapples here. And we saw the pineapple boat come in this morning completely full of pineapples, and the smell was just amazing.
No kidding.
Fresh, ripe pineapples. And you can just imagine how the fruit here, everything is ripe. The mangoes and the passion fruit and the oranges and the pineapples, it's just delicious. They have an interesting cuisine here kind of in Colombia too, and that's one of the neat things about AmaWaterways is they bring it on board the ship. So they always have a Colombian menu and an American menu. So if you want a cheeseburger or if you want a steak, they will have that. But they also do a lot of different Colombian dishes. A lot of seafood. They use cinnamon, ginger, and tamarind in a lot of their sauces. So everything has kind of a tangy, sweet taste to it, and it's really good. The food is really good. They make some good cheese here in Colombia as well. So they make rum as well. So they must grow some sugar here in Colombia too.
Well, Ted, you said that people can see you as you float down the river. So the river must not be super wide.
No, it's probably about as wide as it is, kind of right in front of Hastings. That's about the normal width of the river. It gets a little wider, but there are no locks or dams on this river. And so we are here during the rainy season, although it hasn't rained except for just a couple sprinkles. And so the river level's a little high. So it's probably like it was on the Mississippi before they put in the locks and dams, that it can flood and it can go up and it can go down. So we're here in the wet season, and so the water is a little bit higher, but it'll eventually kind of recede a little bit and more land will become visible. A lot of the people who live along the river live in houses that are up on stilts, just like along the Mississippi River. There are people who live kind of off the grid. There are farmers who live on islands out in some of these big lakes and these big marshes. And so they live out there, they have cattle out there, but they don't have electricity unless they have kind of a solar panel on their roof. And they actually have school buses that pick up the kids, but they're little boats that come out and pick the kids up and take them to school. So it's just a little different way of life here than at home.
So this cruise itself left out of what city?
So we left from the city of Barranquilla, and Barranquilla is a port on the Caribbean. And as I said, it's where Shakira is from. It's probably not the most interesting city on the face of the earth, but it's a nice place to start the cruise because it has an international airport, and it has a harbor, and it has access to, food and things to restock the ship and fuel, things like that. We had a welcome aboard carnival celebration. Barranquilla has one of the largest carnivals, Mardi Gras carnivals in the world. And so the Colombians are very famous dancers. So we had a whole bunch of dancers come and perform all sorts of historic and not so historic dances. And then we headed south along the river. And now today we're as far as we're going to go. So we'll turn around and head back north. And we will end in Cartagena, which is a very historic city. It was once kind of the Spanish treasure port where when the Spaniards were taking all the gold and silver from South America, they loaded it on the ships in Cartagena and sent it back to Spain.
So a lot of history.
Very historic. Yeah, a lot of very interesting history here. And, the town square here is named after Bolivar, Simon Bolivar, the sort of the George Washington of South America. So, yeah, there's a lot of interesting history here. We had a tour today, and we have a local tour guide who takes us around and talked about the history of the town. This city here, Mompox, also has they claim, the third largest Easter parade in the world after the one that's in Seville, Spain. And, where they carry those humongous tabernacles on their shoulders that have all the religious statues on top of them, and they have, 50 or 100 people carrying them. And so we saw the little basilica where the parade starts, and they had some examples of these out that we could see, and they actually even have children's ones now, so they have children carry these in the parade. And so a very rich culture here, very, very rich and very diverse. We'll have a chance to go visit an indigenous village a little bit later. And so that's where the indigenous folks who are actually related to the Eskimos in Alaska live today. And so we'll have a chance to see that as well. So we're getting kind of a whole mix of culture and history here.
So you mentioned that the ship will turn around. How much farther down does this river go, and what other countries would it go through?
So it stays in Colombia, but it goes quite a distance farther, I think at least 100 miles or so, to a fairly large city where some of the iron ore and things like that from the mountains are brought down to the river and then loaded on barges to be taken out to the ocean.
Well, this is just really fascinating. What is the ship itself like, Ted?
Yeah, so the ships, they have two identical ships. They carry 60 passengers, so they're very, very
tiny.
Small. Yeah, tiny. They have some kind of a Colombian themed decor on board, but if you've been on a river cruise in Europe, you would absolutely recognize the kind of the layout and things like that. So there are a couple very nice suites. The staterooms, the regular cabins, all have what they call a twin balcony. So it has a French door that you can open, a sliding door, and it also has a little balcony you can go sit in. It has a marble bathroom. Very, very nice bathroom. There's a dining room where the food is excellent. The danger is you have to be careful and not eat too much. And then there's a lounge where they have talks, and there's a bar there, and they have some little performances in the evening. Then there's a large sun deck outdoors that has a covered area if you don't want to get in the sun, and it has a little swimming pool as well. So it's kind of got everything you need for a very, compact 7-day cruise. Very nice. Staff are all super, super friendly, speak English well, and really just can't do enough for you. And I can tell they've really worked hard to make this cruise a really, really unique experience. So hats off to them for pulling this off in what I'm sure was a challenge. As they look back on it in the past years, I'm sure some of the challenges seemed insurmountable, but the result is pretty amazing.
So what were some of the places that the staff is from? Are they from all over the world?
So most of the travelers on board the ship are American. There are a few Canadians and one or two Europeans. And the staff is 100% Colombian. Everyone on board is Colombian. And apparently we have a celebrity as well. Our cruise manager is the reigning Colombian surfing champion.
Oh.
And so if you've ever met a surfer dude, we have a surfer dude as our cruise manager, but he's very nice and does a really, really good job. And then when he's not working on the ship, he goes off and surfs. So this is actually going to be his last cruise because apparently the Colombian World Surf Championship is coming up in December and he needs to train for it.
Well, there
so
you go.
Take some time off to do that. So there you go.
Now you have a horse in the race for that competition.
I do. I do. Who knew the Colombians had a surf championship?
Shocking. That is shocking.
Yeah.
Well, Ted, if we would like to take this cruise, how often is it offered?
So it runs twice a week, all year. Pretty easy, twice a week. Yeah, but no, please give my office a call, 651-964-8245. Or visit our website, tedblanktravel.com, and any one of us can help you with it, but certainly I'd be happy to chat more about it. And I'll put some pictures up on Facebook as well so you can kind of see what it looks like. But it's just been an amazing experience, and I came into it with not really sure what to expect in terms of what is this place going to be like and what's the experience going to be, and it's knocked my socks off. So they've done a great job, and I would highly recommend it if you want to go someplace warm, have a nice experience, see some history, see some wildlife, and just enjoy a beautiful, hospitable country.
Wow, that is really great to hear. And it's kind of nice sometimes when you have low or really no expectations and then it just delivers much higher than what you thought.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Ted, so great to chat with you, and I hope people do reach out to you. If this is not the trip for them, then certainly about their big plans for the upcoming year and beyond, because it's not too soon to start booking, is it?
No, it's never too soon, but it can definitely be too late. So please do reach out.
Wonderful. Great to chat with you, Ted Blank. He is the host of The Travel Show on AM 1460 and FM 97.7 KDWA in Hastings. This travel show has been brought to you by Ted Blank, Luxury Travel and Adventures.